Is Disneyland still the happiest place on earth? Well, after over a decade of not being there, we have some thoughts.
So if you have heard our origin story of getting Lucas to come to Disney anything, then you'll know that Disneyland was the place where he fell in love with the magic. But as our kids got older and we wanted to branch out to different locations, we started going to Walt Disney World in Florida over Disneyland, California. This was our first time back since 2013, and we were so excited.
So when we arrived, we spent a half day at Disneyland, same arrival day that we arrived, and then we did a full day as well. And I just remember walking down Main Street, USA, after spending, quite a few kind of times at Magic Kingdom over the years now. I just remember looking at it going, man, everything, it feels so miniature. It feels so it was kind of a weird feeling because Magic Kingdom in Disney World, everything is much bigger, and of course it is much bigger in terms of space, and even walking down that main street is much longer, and so they have the ability to create more forced perspective. It was wow, Disneyland. Like I just forgot what it was going to be like walking down Main Street, USA. Yeah, it was, okay, let me back up a little bit. Our very first experience to get into Disneyland, I'm not kidding, the cast member, she was busy chatting with her friend and could care less that she was supposed to be letting people in to Disneyland. It was so contrary to Disney. And then to walk into this very muted, small, what is normally kind of this wow moment as you look down Main Street and you see the castle. It kind of set us up for this just initial reaction that was very lackluster. Yeah, so if you have experienced Magic Kingdom, Disney World, and this is maybe your first time going to Disneyland, it is going to be a bit of it's not going to hit quite the same for you. Now, if you've never been to the parks, you may experience the magic just like I did back in 2013. I distinctly remember walking into Disneyland and just feeling that wow factor for the first time. And so, yes, it can still capture those moments for people who have not experienced other moments that may be a little bit elevated. But let's just back up. This is a video about Disneyland. And so when we got to Disneyland, our half day, we went to the Plaza Inn because we were starving and we wanted to get some fried chicken.
Okay, if you've not done Plaza Inn fried chicken, it is classic, it is delicious, and it is huge. It's 3 pieces of fried chicken, a biscuit, mashed potatoes, green beans, gravy. So we got 2 platters to share between a teenage boy, Lucas, who's 6'6", and myself, and we still had food left over because it is such big portions.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for something that's just gonna hit the spot, be good on a budget, and still gives you, we sat out on the patio looking out over the castle, so it still gives you that kind of, wow, we're here feeling. The Plaza Inn is a great place to start.
Now, I will say this, and this actually really surprised me because I know Disney prides itself in the presentation of environments. And that is really a big part of the wow factor, a bunch of little things that lead up to a big wow. I will say the Plaza Inn, sitting out on the patio, I'll remember looking over and the umbrellas were super sun faded. In fact, one of them, it looked like it had scorch marks on it. It just felt really un-Disney. I don't know if they were just like on the cusp of a turnover on some of that stuff, and we just kind of hit it at the right, but it felt dated, it felt old in that moment.
It just didn't feel the same upkeep. Now, we talk in a different video about Universal Studios Hollywood and how fresh it felt. Like, things felt like they had just been recently painted and all those things. And I will say that that was a marked thing with Disneyland, even versus Disney California Adventure, which we're gonna talk about in a different video, that it just felt run down.
Yeah, it was showing its age, which really, like, it really surprised me. It kind of took me back, that first kind of moment walking in, for sure.
Yeah, and I think the other part of it that surprised us was that Disney just had its 100th anniversary. And I was really expecting that they would have freshened up Disneyland, being Walt's park, being the OG park, that they would have given it some love. And I know that they have that big Disneyland Forward project coming up that I'm sure they're funneling money into right now. But it was just a letdown for that first reaction of walking into Disney. Now, we had a great time.
Absolutely.
But that first wow moment was missing.
Now, some of you who have watched us before, you know our philosophy when it comes to lightning lanes or multi-pass now. What our thoughts are, we don't get to the parks as nearly as much as we'd like to. And because we only get every once in a while, we always add these, whether it was Genie Plus in the past, lightning lanes, or multi-pass, we add it to our package so we can just optimize our time.
Yeah, and I think even you saying that just shows how confusing this whole thing has been. Because it was Genie Plus that you entered through a lightning lane, and now it is lightning lane single pass and lightning lane multi-pass. So for our Disneyland day, we chose to purchase both a Disneyland or a lightning lane single pass, which was Rise of the Resistance, and the lightning lane multi-pass, which gave us access to multiple rides, one time to skip the line per ride per day. Now, we love Rise of the Resistance, and that ride gets insane waits, and we just feel like because we love it so much, we want to make sure that we ride it. And we didn't have a lot of time at Disneyland. We didn't want to wait as long as the wait time was. So for us, it was a splurge that we were willing to do.
So walking into Galaxy's Edge in particular, we were kind of like wondering, okay, what's this going to be like? Is this going to have a unique kind of feel? Because we had been to Galaxy's Edge in Florida at Disney World, and I was actually really surprised. It's basically exactly the same. The experience is pretty much exactly.
It is exactly the same.
The same. Now, that's not to say that's a bad thing, because Galaxy's Edge is a very cool world. They've done a very good job of immersing you into the Star Wars universe. But yeah, I thought maybe there'd be a few little nuances, a few little kind of different kind of things. But yeah, no, not really.
No, so the nuance is in the color scheme. So
Okay.
they took the color of the sky in Florida and the sky in California, they're different blues, and they figured out what color scheme would look best against that sky. And so the color scheme of the two is different, but all of the rides are going to be the same. And so if you are wanting to go and experience something new, it won't be, but it is still, I love Galaxy's Edge, I love Rise of the Resistance, absolutely worth your time.
So Rise of the Resistance, if you have not been on it, it has the best lineup queue of any ride that Disney has ever designed. It is, you are a part, immersed in the story.
Yes.
They just crush that queue. I don't want to give too much away. You've probably already watched videos on it, but you are captured by the enemy and interrogations, and then you make a grand escape. It is just such a fun ride. And in fact, the queue to the ride and the ride itself, they blur the lines so perfectly with that ride that the whole thing is just a perfect experience.
It was great. So absolutely, we had to do that on day one. We had to get it out because we love it so much. But there are some rides that are, okay, there are a lot of rides that are the same between Magic Kingdom and Disneyland, or they're somewhere else in Walt Disney World, but they're in Disneyland. And there's always this big debate of which is better. Is Big Thunder Mountain Railroad better in Disneyland or Magic Kingdom? Is Pirates of the Caribbean better in Disneyland or Magic Kingdom? And so the one that we were the most excited, I think, to go on of the two was Pirates. And I have to say, after riding it in Disneyland, because every time we would ride it in Magic Kingdom, I'd be like, oh, I wish we were on the Disneyland version. I don't know that I feel that anymore.
You know what? The Disney World version has the double drop, and that just adds just that extra moment in the ride. Now that's not to say that Disneyland, we rode it so many times.
We did.
While we
rode
were there.
It a lot.
We love that ride, and just even to get out of the sun and just get some
air conditioning.
Some air conditioning, and you know that ride is perfect for that. But not to say it's not good. It just if we're debating which one's better between the two, yeah.
I don't know.
Disney World, let's go.
Yeah, so that was one that we were super excited to ride. Again, I feel like our minds have actually been changed. And then the other one that we were very excited to ride, which isn't exactly the same, but same ride track, is Indiana Jones versus Dinosaur. And we already knew how we felt, and it confirmed it. Indy, hands down.
Oh, Indiana Jones, it's just so much fun. And of course, we're millennials. We grew up with Indiana Jones. It's a classic. Yeah. Dinosaur just, hey guys, did Dinosaur ever really hit?
There are people that are like very sad that it is going away.
I feel like Dinosaur never really hit like as a cultural moment. Indiana Jones absolutely did and still does. And so Indiana Jones was just so much fun.
It was a lot of fun. Now there were some other rides obviously that are the same between both. The one that kind of disappointed me most was Space Mountain. And this is a hot take because I know there are so many people who hate on Magic Kingdom Space Mountain because it's jerky and the ride at Disneyland is so smooth and you're sitting side by side and it's easier to get in and out of those rockets, and all of that is true.
It is smoother. It is smoother.
It's not as fun.
But it's not as fun. It doesn't have the same scare factor as Disney World.
Yeah, it felt very like cat and mouse roller coaster where you're kind of just more jerking side to side versus the drops that make the Magic Kingdom Space Mountain just so fun.
But it's a classic, and it's a classic for a reason. It's still a lot of fun at Disneyland. We went multiple times as well. And yeah, please, Disneyland.
Just add some drops.
Yeah.
Can you reconfigure the whole mountain, please?
I was gonna say Disneyland, don't mess with that one. Don't mess with that classic. You know, I'm all about renewing and changing, and I'm not a diehard purist as a Disney ride person. I think there's a lot of rides they should revamp and change, and all of that. I'm not like a purist that way. Yeah. But man, Space Mountain, don't mess with it. Don't mess with it.
So one that I would like to see them mess with, and I don't know, you might unsubscribe from the channel after I say this, Matterhorn bobsleds. Yeah.
Speaking of jerky.
Yeah.
I have a good back. I have a good strong back. And man, I felt like that I was gonna need adjustments after doing that ride. That's a rough ride on the body.
It is. It's rough on your body.
And not in a fun way.
It's not that good.
No.
And yeah, I don't know. It just wasn't our thing. We did do it multiple times every day still. But if you were gonna revamp one of the mountains, I know they were actively renovating Tiana's Bayou Adventure while we were there. So they were upgrading one of the mountains. But that would be my vote for the next mountain Disneyland should reno. Now there were some kind of hidden gem things that I thought were really fun to go see in Disneyland, like the Adventureland treehouse. You didn't wait for anything.
Yeah, that's just a fun little people catcher. Now here's the thing with Disneyland, it's so small that there aren't a lot of people catchers. And so having that to kind of just take off and do something, see something, go up above the crowds. It was a bit of a breath of fresh air for sure. And that is one thing that we notice about Disneyland is we forgot how small that park really is. Man, it felt so crowded.
Part of it is just actually like the physical size dynamic, that the walkways are very tiny. And so even if you didn't have the same crowd that was in Magic Kingdom, because it's narrower, it felt like you did. And so our kind of the park at Walt Disney World that feels most crowded to us is Animal Kingdom. And it kind of feels like you're always scrunched in this crowd. And that's what Disneyland felt like to us the whole time. Even though on a crowd calendar, it was only a 6 out of 10.
Yeah.
It just felt very, very wall-to-wall people.
Yeah, so something to keep in mind. And this is a good thing. Like, it's good and bad. So in one way, coming from like some of the bigger parks in Walt Disney World, where you just had bigger geographic area, the con is it feels more compact and it feels tighter and crowds feel like they're bigger than they actually are. But there's no problem running from one lightning lane, like lightning ride to another and hitting your schedules. And you don't feel that like, oh, I gotta like walk all the way across this park.
Now, speaking of lands, they, again, we're just in the process of building or changing Splash Mountain over to Tiana's Bayou Adventure.
We'll throw some footage here. I got in trouble. I got in trouble for this footage. Just putting this camera up over the wall, the construction wall. Yeah, but I did it for you guys.
So Critter Country was closed while we were there, as was Haunted Mansion. They are currently building that out to be very neat. But one of the lands that they had just renovated was New Orleans Square, and they had changed a lot of it over to be a little bit more inspired by Princess and the Frog. So let's chat about food, because we love good dining. So we mentioned the Plaza Inn, which is where we had our first lunch, and then we had our first supper at Rancho del Zocalo. And I think you were the only one who liked your food.
Yeah, I enjoyed my food.
I got a chicken burrito bowl.
Yeah.
And there was very little chicken in it. It was predominantly refried beans, which I'm not a massive fan of. But if it's in like a burrito bowl, that's fine. And then our son got the birria tacos, I want to say. And there's 3 tacos, and they were like so tiny. He wasn't a huge fan of the taste, but he was starving. So much so that we actually went and got some Bengal beef platters at Bengal Barbecue later to fill him up. But yeah, it wasn't my favorite. There are so many good places to eat at Disneyland that...
If you had to pick a number one in terms of eating, like if you're going to go for dinner, number one, without like having to have a sit down kind of special
Plaza
ticket.
is always my choice. I think that fried chicken platter is
it's a
very
great,
good.
Yeah, it's very good.
And it's a good bang for your buck as well.
Yeah, especially if you're sharing, because it's easily a shareable meal.
Yeah, and then I think what Disneyland does really well is that they have so many places where you could stop and get a small plate, like that skewer from Bengal Barbecue, or you could go get a very good churro at like Walt Disney World, or different things that you could kind of just snack your way through the day without having to do a full-on meal if you wanted to.
Now we opted for the Fantasmic package, which, man, guys, if you want to add anything on to your trip, this was such a game changer. This made both our late night festivities with Fantasmic so much better.
So Rancho del Zocalo is your bottom, like, price-wise. It's gonna be $30 for a 3-course meal. And you get kind of a set menu that you get to choose from. And I haven't heard rave reviews about it, but I haven't heard terrible things either. So if you want a place to sit to watch Fantasmic, you don't want to break the bank, go with that one. And then there's the Riverbell Terrace, where you can get, there are multiple different meals available to you, right from breakfast to actually sitting and watching from the Riverbell Terrace watching the show while you're eating. And that's a little bit more than that $55. But if you want like a show and a dinner at the same time, you could do that. And then the Blue Bayou, which was a 4-course meal. All the rest are 3-course meals. So we got our appetizer. I got a pistachio strawberry salad, which was quite delicious. I think Ethan got gumbo. And do you remember what you got?
Yeah, so before we get too into the menu, keep in mind that we did the Fantasmic kind of special with this. And so this is a little bit more. You can book all of these restaurants kind of separate from this package. And that's going to be a little bit cheaper, but highly recommend the Fantasmic package. I also got the same salad. It was very good. For my entree, I got the blackened ribeye with shrimp. That was an additional $10. So that was a kind of an upsell, but it just looked so good. Here's the deal. It comes with bread service.
And it's good bread service.
Yeah, and that's the problem. Go easy on the bread service because when the food comes, it's so much food. I couldn't even come close to finishing my entree. And then we got your favorite at the end of the night.
We did, but let me go back to my main, which was the Creole chicken. It was very spicy. Like Disney spice is usually a level that I can handle, but this was like, it was actually hard for me. I'm not a huge spice fan, but it was very spicy. And so if you are somebody that is a little bit more spice adverse, there are a lot of things on the menu.
In fact, here's some of your other options. The blackened ribeye and bourbon shrimp, the Oscar style filet mignon, sustainable market fish, the Creole roasted chicken, or the pistachio lemon basil pasta. And of course, those packages were as of summer of 2024.
Yeah, but I did think that creme brulee was quite delicious.
I got the creme brulee as well. Yeah. And
it's creme brulee.
I don't know how I finished it because, man, I ate so much ribeye and shrimp.
But all of your drinks are included, non-alcoholic beverages are included in your package. So if you like mint juleps, I'm the only one. I was able to get unlimited mint juleps, which if you just go over outside to where they are doing the Mickey beignets, that's a pricey drink. So add that into your package as well to just give you a little bit more bang for your buck on that. But we did enjoy, we wanted to splurge for Blue Bayou. We would have done it even without a Fantasmic package for our anniversary, because you're eating at that starting point of Pirates of the Caribbean. And it's just really cool to be looking out over the balcony as the ride vehicles go by.
Now, I do have some thoughts.
Sure.
One thought is I wish that they would kind of close the main reception doors because it killed the ambiance and the vibe. There's so much natural light coming in. I wish they had figured out a way to design a better separation from that front waiting room to the actual dining room. Because when you're on the ride, you look at everybody in Blue Bayou and it looks like a very nice, dark, muted, intimate setting. But then when you're actually sitting in the restaurant, maybe if you're sitting like further away from the main doors, it would be a little bit of a different experience. But man, I wish they would kind of kill some of that natural light and just capture a little more of that moody, dark, out on the patio in the evening.
Yes.
And
on the bayou.
Yeah, that's a little unfortunate.
Yeah, and we were right up against the railing. We were just kind of over to one end of the restaurant, so we were diagonally looking at those doors. So I know what you're saying, but it was always in your line of sight, so it did kind of, it ruined the magic.
That's nitpicking.
Yes.
But hey, Disney's all about the little things, and so I feel like when it comes to Disney, I don't mind nitpicking just a little bit.
Fair enough. But like I said, we did want to do this anyway because we wanted to eat there for our anniversary. But having it with that dining package was incredible. About an hour before your Fantasmic showtime, because We were there in the summer, so they did early and a late show. You can check in and head on down. And there's a family sitting in front of us and then us. Yeah. And that was how far away we were from the Rivers of America and the show itself. And guys, we were sitting.
And we were sitting. I mean, that literally is the best part of this package is, yeah, the food is great, the experience is good, but getting to sit down during Fantasmic is just such a game changer. I would spend money again for that. We have in the past have done for the fireworks. We've done like in Disney World.
Yeah. We
would do the dessert package and then the exclusive seating. But even then, you have to stand. You have like your own spot, but you still have to end up standing, and it gets really crowded. This was such a good experience. It felt like a really good upsell by Disney, just to be able to sit during that time. What did you think of Fantasmic, by the way?
I thought it was okay. I love Fantasmic. It is my favorite nighttime show in both parks. I feel ruined a little bit by Disney World, that Hollywood Studios tiered seating, like kind of stadium type seating, and having a dedicated theater for Fantasmic allowed them to have some height and some different things. Also unfair to Disneyland is that their Maleficent dragon caught on fire. And so they weren't able to do that. And so they literally just raised her up in the air, which was like, it still gave you the grandeur, but it didn't give you the fire-breathing dragon that we kind of are used to expecting, and then Mickey with his sword. And I've heard people say that the Sailing Ship Columbia and the Peter Pan scene for them makes Disneyland better than Disney World, and I don't know that I felt that. So I still loved the show. It made me teary. But I don't know if it was just the missing dragon. It just didn't live up to Hollywood Studios.
Now, my experience is a little different because back in 2013, Fantasmic had since been X'd from the shows. So I didn't get to experience Fantasmic at Disneyland.
Yeah, they were doing renovations in 2013 that had the show put on hold.
Yeah, so I didn't get to see it. And so I've seen Fantasmic at Disney World, and yes, the whole thing is really cool. But I will say there were some pleasant surprises with the ships coming and different barges coming and characters dancing in front of you. And man, I thought for what they have to work with there, I thought that show was a lot of fun. Seeing the ships kind of come by and all the characters hanging off the side of the boat. And yeah, that was a really fun show. Now, with that said, personally, oh man, we'll talk in another video about our time at California Adventure, and of course they have World of Color. I might personally have World of Color a little bit up there over Fantasmic personally.
Just kidding, we have to fight.
That's just a preference thing. But I thought, man, it was a great show. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, I love Fantasmic. Maybe it's just the nostalgia factor for me because I did grow up going to Disney as a kid. But even now, like, I play that soundtrack while I'm cleaning. Like, I love it. It gives me all of the feels. So it was worth doing. Loved the dining package and loved sitting. But then I loved the ability to stay.
Yeah, so this, I mean, I know for me, I didn't realize that this was going to happen. So maybe for you, like, this might be a little known fact. Some of you might go, yeah, of course. But you can stay after, and they will actually play the music and have kind of some of the stuff happening during the fireworks. So you don't have to rush off, run to the fireworks at the castle. You can stay seated right where you're at and enjoy the fireworks from that Fantasmic show area.
Yeah, and whatever they're projecting on the castle, they are doing water screens similar to World of Color and projecting in front of you on the rivers of America. So the only thing you're really missing, I mean, you're missing the castle.
Yeah.
And you're missing anything that flies. So if it's Tinkerbell or the Blue Fairy, Baymax, the Up House, all those things have flown across the sky in Disneyland. You're gonna miss that part, but the fireworks are actually happening closer to Toontown. So you're seeing them in front of you as you're looking out over Rivers of America. And it's kind of like a two birds, one stone thing. You get these two amazing shows, no crowds.
Yeah, like
you're comfortable.
I loved it. Like if I did it all over again, I would do the fireworks at the exact same place with the exact same package. I wouldn't change a thing. Highly recommend. Yeah, Fantasmic dining package. It's well worth the money, guys.
Yeah, and then don't hurry out from Disneyland at night. I know if you have little ones with you, you know, there's a mass exodus after the fireworks, and I get it because we've traveled with little ones. But we were able to ride everything with like 15-minute wait. I'm talking Indiana Jones, like we are just walking through queues. And the ambiance of Disneyland at night is just so special. They do such a fun job with tiki torches and twinkle lights and get that last little bit of magic out of your day.
Well, we started this video by kind of asking the question, is Disneyland still the happiest place on earth in 2024? We have some mixed reviews, so let's talk a little bit pros and cons. We are Canadians, so we live on the west coast of Canada. One of the pros for us is just the travel time to get to Disneyland is so much shorter. It's such a quick turnaround to get down, to get back up. Secondly, it's in the same time zone for us. So if you live in the same time zone, especially with little kids, you know how like a change of time zones can really mess up the routines and all of that. So that is a pro. Great weather. In fact, I would say California has maybe more consistent great weather than Florida with some of their storm seasons, some of the rain that they get, thunder showers, all of that. It's the OG park, guys. I mean, that has to count for something. It's the park that started it all.
Even on our last night before we went out, we kind of just stopped at the fire hall and looked up at the lamp that's on forever in honor of Walt Disney. And just, you know, had a moment to say, thanks for creating this, because it was so special.
And so if you love the Disney product, you know, in terms of parks, you know, there's something to be said about the history that Disneyland represents. And yes, it felt a little bit dated, and that's one of our cons. It felt a little bit dated. You could see a sense of the wear and tear and the age of that park. Now, again, like you said, maybe they're funneling resources to some of the big initiatives they have going in terms of building. And so maybe they just don't have the revenues and the resources to kind of put into some of the upkeep. But that was a little bit of a bummer. I'm not gonna lie, guys. I'm hoping that was an anomaly for, you know, summer of 2024, but we'll see. Time will tell on that.
Yeah, and then I really miss that feeling of being in a Disney bubble that you get at Disney World. Now, we've stayed on-site and off-site at Disney World. Our preference is to be on-site for this fact. Like, you kind of feel like you're always in the magic. And there was a clear leaving the magic feeling as you exited out of downtown Disney or outside of the Esplanade. And I did miss that kind of feeling of just being in it your whole vacation.
Now, as you know, when you go to the parks, you know, one of the biggest factors, and this will always be one of the biggest factors, it's not necessarily about the design and the things and the rides, it's the cast members. The cast members really play a huge part in creating that feeling that you get when you're at Disney properties. Here's what I will say. Back in 2013, the cast members really made an extra effort. We experienced extra effort moments from cast members. This time around, it was the exact opposite. It just felt like a lot of the cast members. Now, and maybe this is just our experience. We'd love to know in the comments below if you've experienced this, but our experience of cast members at Disney World in Florida versus Disneyland this summer was a stark difference. And so we're hoping that that is just an anomaly. Maybe that was just our experience, But yeah.
And it was too bad because we've done Alani, we've done Disney Cruise Line, we did Disney World back in 2022. And there is just this level of consideration. They want you to have a good time. I don't think that we're difficult people, like really asking people to go above and beyond. Just typical pleasantries and courtesy. And those were the things that were missing. It felt like we were an inconvenience just by being there. And that's not the feeling that you want your guests to take away when they're spending a significant amount of money to be there for a day. And so we always say that, you know, the cast members are the magic, and that magic unfortunately was missing in Disneyland.
And then finally, one of the cons of Disneyland California Adventure kind of together is downtown Disney is not nearly the experience that Disney Springs is. To put this into context, you could fly in and you could spend a day hanging out at Disney Springs. Like you could make that a day easy.
Yes.
And have a ton of fun and eat some great food and experience some great shopping and all of that. I actually forgot how small downtown Disney is. And so it just doesn't carry quite the same. You won't be able to spend a day at downtown Disney. Maybe an afternoon, maybe a few hours.
Yeah.
If you're adding a meal or a sit down time, but yeah.
And they are working to build it back up. So downtown Disney shrunk from what it was in 2013 even. It is significantly smaller than what it was. They have less shopping. They don't have some of the entertainment options that they had back then. They don't have as much dining. And that is slowly being built back up. But we were able to walk through it in 10 minutes from one end to the other. And we had a great meal. I will shout out Black Tap.
Yeah.
We had a fabulous meal, just great burgers, great fries, really yummy, like unique dipping sauces. And we spent some time shopping down in downtown Disney, going into all of the stores. So it was a good evening. But we were in and out in probably 2.5 hours, and I feel like we exhausted downtown Disney looking at everything. So that is definitely a con for Disneyland.
Yeah, so is Disney still worth it in 2024? Does it still bring the magic? Yes
And no.
and no. In the future, I think if we had the time, we have the ability, the finances, the budget, we would probably choose Disney World over Disneyland. But in a pinch, if we have limited time and limited budget, which was actually the case in this trip, Disneyland still carries a special place in our hearts and probably always will. We're just hoping some of these things were just anomalies, but let us know what your experience has been as of late. Guys, we're Maple Mickey, putting the magic, hopefully, back into your Disney experience. See you next time.